Proteau here, local supporting locals. We just wrapped up the meeting with the new chief, and so they had a public meeting, a police meeting, to introduce himself and introduce the new plan that they got for the next quarter and where they're moving. I have to say it was nice to hear the chief talking about going back to sources of the problem, you know, and you know, where it comes to addictions, you know, if they noticed an occurrence where the reason why this person is breaking into homes is because they have an addiction, the officer gives them that opportunity to, like, you know, would you like to get some help, instead of just grabbing them and throwing them in jail. And so then to set up that kind of community network, I thought it is fantastic, you know, and yeah, I was very impressed by that part. Same thing with mental illness. And the one thing that I did find concerning was when one of the gentlemen in the audience got up and talked about bringing in, putting people in jail for not taking their mental awareness pills, you know, so if they're not taking their medication, they should go to jail. I can't begin to tell you how totally opposed I am to that. And as many people know, we publish the local supporting local calendars. Theme of them every year is real living with real food. The next one's going to be a natural Okanagan, because we need to go back to that. Our calendars are full of information. We put in there in our second calendar, okay, we're working on our fifth, all the awareness about cell towers, all this Wi-Fi that we're being bombarded with. And I'm not against technology. I mean, I use a cell phone, I use a computer, no problems with that. It's the bombardment of it. You know, every company wants to get in here. You know, there's money. People's pockets are getting lined to allow these other companies to come in. You know, and you should only allow so much in, and everybody gets their service. There's no problem with that. The thing is again, the bombardment. And so if you're going to go back to the true source of the problems, that's what you need to look at. Okay, so we got the first smart meter opt-out program in Canada. That was us, locals supporting locals, taking on the city. We had a public forum, and we obtained that. So they need to go looking into that. So that needs to be brought into this whole community network that they're looking at, is start doing safety evaluations, and maybe we can start getting people off of meds. And also diet. Actually, I don't like that term diet. If you break it up, diet. But people eating real food again, you know, and that's a lot of what the issues are. So having, working with naturopaths, you know, naturopathic clinics, doctors, having them being a part of it, not just interior health, because that's big pharma, you know, so that's not going to work. So that's what I'm proposing that should be thrown into this community network here. And so you can find us, subscribe to our YouTube channel here. You can agree to disagree with me, that's fine. Be polite if you want to post and comment, but localsupportinglocals.ca.com. You can look at all our videos, blogs, follow us on the website, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You get posted every time we put up a new video, and Local Supporting Locals on Facebook page. And my name is Kevin Proteau.
Sure, it's Ted D. Jagger. Last name is D-E space J-A-G-E-R. And I'm the officer in charge of Penticton, South Okanagan, Similkameen Regional Detachment.
What's the purpose of tonight's, I guess, open house or question period? Or
Sure, yeah, it's a community policing forum. The intent is to get everybody in the community, so from Summerland all the way down to Princeton, everyone's been invited to try to get their perspective on what they want to see in the community in terms of policing and in terms of setting our priorities. So this is the time of year that we set our policing priorities, and now the community is a part of that, so we can have them here today.
Have things changed? I mean, it's summer, you get more people in town, or is it sort of a general policing policy year-round?
Well, we do have seasonal issues. Obviously, in this area, it's a very tourist-rich area, so we do get a lot of people coming through, but these are priorities that are going to cover the whole year. So how do we look at things like prolific offenders that are causing the majority of the crime? How do we address things like addictions and homelessness and mental health, that sort of thing? So that's what we're looking at. And we're looking at a whole of government or a whole community solution to that.
So, I mean, the RCMP are here tonight. Are there other agencies here?
There are a number of other agencies, Interior Health, School District. So they're not going to be speaking tonight, so I'm leading the setting of the priorities today. but then we'll move forward from there as well. So the intent will be to create a community safety committee that will all sit at that table, and concerned citizens will be welcome there as well, so that monthly or quarterly, whatever the time frame is for that we meet to discuss concerns in the community, and then we set priorities or initiatives from there.
Now, I notice there's like a microphones. You're taking, I guess, questions from the audience tonight?
Right.
Or?
So the format tonight is just a brief introduction. I'll go through some statistics, some of the things that we have been doing, what our priorities were in the past, and what we're looking to do in the next year. Go over some of the initiatives that we're planning on putting forward throughout the next year, some of the way forward, how people can get involved, and then it's going to be an open mic for questions and for answers. So,
what you say you do this every year? Is this sort of yearly thing? What kind of numbers you see or do you expect tonight?
Well, this is my first time here, so I don't know when the last one was in Penticton and for the regional district, but I've done them several times before in my previous detachment, and it was always very well received by the community because they have that opportunity to express themselves, both good and bad, and I'm open to both. If there's criticisms, then we need to hear that so that we can address that, and if there's ideas out there that people want to get forward to us, then we need to address those as well. So that's the intent, is to ensure that they have that the whole community has a voice, and that we move forward from there.
You said you've done them in previous communities. How many times does the public maybe bring up something that you guys hadn't thought about or was off your radar?
I don't know that they necessarily bring things up that we haven't thought of, and to be frank, if I'm doing my job, I'm understanding what the issues are in the community. However, it's an opportunity for them to get involved, and that's what we're looking at and looking for. But if they do have a great idea, whether it's something like anything from getting involved in Citizens on Patrol or getting a program up and running, then I'm very supportive of that as well.
Can I just jump in one question? Kevin Proteau, local supporting local.
Hello.
Welcome. You were talking about agencies that were here. Is the fire department here as well?
I am not sure. Everyone was invited, but the fire department's pretty busy at this time of
No,
year.
no, I could see that.
Yeah.
I just wondered if they would have one representative here, because
I'm not sure, but they will certainly be part of the public safety committee that we're looking to form in the community.
yes, because I know they're bringing in more police officers, and where there are fires, because of all the people going in and looting during fires. So I'm just wondering if you guys would. I call it the 7 P's of life: proper prior planning prevents pitiful poor performance. So I'm just wondering if you guys are meeting and preparing on stuff like that in the event something would happen here in Penticton.
Yeah, and I know the fire chief personally, so we talk all the time. And having just had an incident last week in Okanagan, so we created an integrated command structure that police and fire, both fire and wildfire, were all in one integrated command. So we talk quite often.
Well, is there going to be something for the public to get involved with, like what to do in the event of?
Oh, absolutely. In the event of fire? Or in
Yeah,
the
in the event of fire. I'm just wondering if you know anything yet.
Well, there is a lot of information at the RDOS under the EOC in terms of how to prepare, if there is an evacuation alert or order, and what steps you should take. So that information is out there. So I don't want to be redundant. So it's already established through the regional district. So we want to make sure that people go to that website.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. With Sergeant Don Wigglesworth, and it's a police meeting that's taking place.
Yes. I'm not here to talk about that.
No?
Superintendent Dion.
Yes. Well, yeah, and I've already got him in an interview there, but we're here with the Crime Stop unit here too. And one thing I thought that was kind of cool here to bring solutions to a lot of the life that was taking place in Penticton.
Then we brought in 529 Garage, also known as Project 529. What it is, it's an online registration where there's an app where your bike is registered and numbers are put in, and everybody that has their bicycle registered is linked in. If your bike is stolen, you can press a button and alerts go out to everybody in the community. And it also heightens people's awareness to record their serial number. It's one of the most frustrating things as a police officer when a person reports their bicycle being stolen. It's a black bike. Well, we see some people that we know don't work, don't spend money on anything except cigarettes and lottery tickets and drugs, but they have a brand new, wonderful bike. And we would suspect, our spidey senses tell us that bicycle is stolen. But when we check the serial number, it doesn't come back. And we have to act in accordance with the law. So getting that knowledge out there to the public, register your bikes, know your serial number, and this is a great app. Right now, Mike's Pawn Shop in Penticton has agreed to sponsor all bicycle rides. We're just doing an interview here. So for the last month, Mike's Pawnbrokers on Main Street in Penticton has agreed to sponsor all the bicycle registrations. We've been charging a small fee of $5 for the sticker that was put on the bikes to try to recoup some of our costs from our community policing program. We spent a big chunk of our budget to get this program here, and we saw it as one of the top priorities with the high rate of bike theft. And it's great that Mike's pawnbrokers have stepped up. They were the one pawnbrokers that I went to that agreed to stop dealing in bicycles.
I'm here now with former Sergeant Rick Delliver, who is now heading up Crime Stoppers here. Yes. So what's happening with you in Crime Stoppers now? I mean, you made such a great sergeant here. I mean, I really missed you.
Well, I enjoy my new role. I took over from Al Sisme here, and very exciting times right now because we've got quite a good board of board members that are out there right now. Our big fundraiser is going to be the golf tournament. We moved it this year to September 9th. We had too much conflict in the June date with a lot of the Action Fest and things like that, so we're hoping it's going to be a good event because we depend on that for a lot of our fundraising.
Is that open to the public?
It's open to the public. We have registration fees. I think we get people to get four people together, and for $100, I believe it's $60 if you're a golf club member. It's on our site anyhow. We also have some pamphlets available.
Which golf course?
Penticton Golf and Country Club.
Oh, okay.
And for your money, you get a beer and a burger for lunch, and then we have some great prizes. We got a silent auction. So far this year, we've got 3 cars on the hole-in-one, so there's a chance to win a car on the hole-in-one. And we have a good silent auction. And at night, they get a steak dinner and the trimmings or beef dinner for all the trimmings. So, anybody that's interested, by all means, you can drop around and see me. I'm right next to the Peach. I'll have all the information for you, or look at our website.
Well, I mean, I noticed here, like the importance of Crime Stoppers.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And a lot of people that participate in Crime Stoppers don't do it for rewards. They just do it because they want justice and crime and report these individuals. So it's a very successful program. What a lot of people don't know is that all the funding we get is we raise the funding ourselves. There's no government grants, there's no municipal grants. We raise the money, and the money we raise goes directly to the program for paying rewards, advertising, and getting the word out for Crime Stoppers.
So the thing with Crime Stoppers too, it's you call the toll-free number and you remain anonymous.
You remain anonymous, and you can use the web. You can buy the web. There's mobile apps as well, and it's all anonymous. Even I can text back and forth and it's all anonymous. I don't know who you are because it goes through a website, kind of like Kijiji and all them, where you can talk to people. If you don't want them to know your name, it protects you. So it's
there you go. So you can feel safe, and you can report any crime and not feel like you're going to get tagged or.
No. We have in fact, we have no desire to know your name, because the moment we start finding out your name, our program will be over.
Yeah.
So we take great steps to protect our identity. In fact, we take greater steps than a lot of people, because some people will phone in and they'll say, my neighbor is doing something, and they'll give you the address. So really, but we always weed that out so it doesn't become knowledge. So we go to great lengths to protect people's identity, because we want to ensure the program. That's why people call Crime Stoppers. As we say, what we want is your information, not your identity. If you see something, hear something, say something, then give us a call.
Perfect. Thank you, Rick. You look a lot less stressed out now.
Yes. I just have to worry about myself, but that could be a big problem too, right?
All right, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got a lapel mic. I haven't been mic'd up like this since the last time I arrested someone, so I'll try to make sure that I don't talk too loud. So before we get started, I just wanted to do a few introductions and go over the agenda of how we're going to do things tonight. First of all, I just have to introduce a few VIPs here, and I think it's indicative of how important policing and public safety and community wellness is to all of our communities by the representation that we have here. So, representing all levels of government, our MP for the area, Richard Canyons, is here, our MLA, Dan Ashton. We have two mayors, Mayor Jackbite from Penticton and Mayor McCordov, sorry, and then get the name is here as well from Proteau. This is a regional detachment, so it's important that we have all of our communities represented. So it's wonderful to have the mayors here, and two of our councillors, Councillor Watt and Councillor O'Connor, are here as well, representing Penticton. So it's great to have you all here. And
may I say, I'm acting mayor for Summerland.
Oh, thank you very much. So meeting all of the mayors and councillors is high on my agenda, so I am getting around. So I will be at one of your meetings very, very soon. So before I go any further, I just want to turn the mic over to Mayor Jackbite just to say a few words, and then we'll move ahead.
I guess I'll go in the middle here because...
So sorry, some of you guys will get the backside of me.
It's too easy.
I think everyone here has probably been affected by crime, whether you're an actual victim or you know someone, or you're just concerned, and that's what brought you out here. And I think it's a great first step to actually have a conversation about what's happening and to meet the new superintendent. It did take a bit longer to get the new superintendent. Kevin Hugo, Superintendent Hugo, retired last September, and really Deputy J. Ander's first day was beginning of May. But we really wanted to ensure the new superintendent, this wasn't a retirement posting for them, someone with innovative ideas and really being invested in the community. And I really appreciate the fact that he actually lives downtown, so he's seen what's happening. You've seen him in the market in full gear, walking around as well, which is a real positive sign in hosting a town hall meeting here, where he'll be very candid, and I'm sure most people in this room will be very frank and candid as well. And I think that's the first step to finding some solutions and moving forward. And everyone kind of looks at the city to snap their fingers and solve things, and it's not as easy as that. So I think a collaborative effort is what's going to make a difference and make some improvements for us. So I just wanted to welcome everyone and thank everyone for coming out. It was really the superintendent's town hall meeting, so I will turn it over to him and best of luck.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Carla. Carla, is that? I always get your name wrong, sorry. Let me double check it. Kozakovich, yes, is here as well from the RDOS. Sorry, I missed you. I was reading through the list too fast of all the people that are here. And another introduction. My buddy who sits in the office next to me, Calypso, she's watching, she's looking out. She's she works with our victim services, and she's an accredited facilities dog, right? Brings lots of comfort to people in need. People are going through trying times. She goes to court, and now she's here to bring me some comfort as well. Thanks, Calypso. So, the agenda. So introduction and welcome. What I'm going to do is go over basically 5 points. I'll cover our annual performance plan. That's really what keeps us on track, and that's what we're here tonight to talk about, is our annual performance plan in terms of what our priorities for policing are going to be. The mayor mentioned I'll be very frank and candid, and I will be. I have a little bit of a habit of being a bit over-transparent with what I'm talking about, and I want you to be the same. So we'll do this in a very casual manner, but we have a lot of people here, so we really do need to get to the point of what we're talking about, and that's community wellness and community safety. So when we get to the question and answer period, then we'll certainly have an opportunity to go over some of the more innovative things that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to go over some of the numbers. Everybody loves statistics. And I would ask when we go through the statistics that you don't focus so much on the number, but you focus on the trend and on what's happening. And that's what we're going to be looking at, where we're going, because that's what's really going to drive what our priorities are and how we're going to move forward. Moving forward is going to be the next part, what some of the initiatives are that we look to establish in the detachment. This is quite a unique detachment. It's about half provincially funded members and about half municipally funded members. The two municipal organizations right now are Penticton and Summerland, and we're looking at Osoyoos as well as moving into that range as well. So it's quite unique that we have municipally funded members and provincially funded members, and that has a little bit of a say in where they go and where they're responsible for and what they're responsible for. But it doesn't mean that we can't all work together as long as we ensure that we are accurately reflecting their workload and the cost for that, and finding questions and answers. So I think that's where most of you have come tonight, is to ask some questions and hopefully have the answers. And if I don't, then that's going to be part of what we're going to talk about as well, is how do we move forward from there to develop some of those answers. So first of all, annual performance plan, what is it? It tracks our policing priorities and makes sure that we can get our reporting done. So quarterly reporting is part of the contract. The RCMP is contracted to the province of British Columbia to be the provincial police force. It's also contracted to a number of communities such as Penticton and Summerland to be their municipal police force. One of the requirements of that contract is that we report quarterly on everything from crime statistics to community initiatives and community safety, public complaints against the RCMP members, code of conduct. Financial is a big one, of course, what our budget envelopes are. So those are all things that have to go out there, and a big part of that is what we've done and what we need to do, and that's reporting out to you. So what we'll be implementing is a quarterly report that goes to the mayors and councils and to the provincial representatives, but also goes to all of you through a public manner, through the media. So outcomes and effectiveness, that's basically, if it's not in the plan, it gets deferred. So that's why it's important that we get it right tonight, and we get it right in the coming weeks and months to make sure that our priorities are on track. Because if we don't, then it's going to have to wait a little while until we can get into the next cycle. And that's not something that's bureaucratic, it's just something that it takes a lot to move the big machine. And we have to make sure that we're addressing all of our communities and all of our issues. And finally, I'm sorry, we talked about that already. And what my intent is develop it into a regional strategic plan with public reporting. So the APP right now, technically there's six detachments in the regional district area, from Summerland to Penticton all the way through around into Princeton. And right now we're on 6 different annual performance plans. To me, that's not effective. To me, crime in public safety is an issue for the entire community and for the entire corridor. So how we report and how we measure our success or measure the things that we need to work on has to be regional as well. So the intent is to build that regional strategic plan. And again, that's something that's going to be reported out to all of you and to the public so that everybody is aware of where we're going and how they can get in touch. So last year, the annual performance plan had 3 priorities: traffic safety, police community relations, and crime reduction. If I'm doing my job right, if my non-commissioned officers are doing their jobs right, if our communication is going right with our government liaisons and our government direction, then we should know exactly what that is. And that was a pretty small priority. It's difficult to maintain that, but we've added a couple for this year. And this isn't set in stone, otherwise this meeting would be redundant. This is just where I'm looking at in terms of where we need to go for our community. So road safety, people often ask, you'll hear that a lot, why are you out there? Why aren't you catching the real criminals? Why are you giving me a traffic ticket? Why are you doing this? More people die on the roads every year in this community and in this province than all the other crime types combined. That's why we're out on the road, in terms of impaired drivers, distracted drivers, speeders. If we don't do that, then we start to see a bit of a stretch in road safety, that people start driving faster, or they start taking it for granted that there's no enforcement, and we just can't do that. It's the leading cause of injury and property damage, so it's something that we have to focus on. Domestic violence, of course, is another issue that we have. You'll see when we go through the statistics that domestic violence in this community is alive and well. It's relatively low, fortunately, in all of our communities, but it's still there. And it's something that we have to addressed. And that's not just a partner against partner domestic violence, but that's also involving children and also involving siblings. So we have to make sure that from a family perspective, we're addressing that and tracking that. Crime reduction is a big one. And that's mostly what we're going to talk about tonight, is crime reduction, in terms of how do we prevent this from happening in the first place, what are the root causes of crime, and how do we stop the hamster wheel from spinning. And I'll give you some examples, and I'll show you some videos of our video of exactly what happens every night in this community, in Summerlin, in Osoyoos, in Oliver, in Princeton, everywhere in this province. And it's something that we can address and we can work on. Community engagement is another big one. This is the start of it in terms of having a policing forum. We'll move that forum to the southern part as well to make sure that we can, into the Oliver Osoyoos area, to make sure that we can get people there coming out so that I can hear them as well. Open houses. You collectively, as taxpayers, pay for everything that we have, every piece of equipment, everything that we do, our salaries. So the least I can do is invite you into my house. You don't probably want me to come into your house, so we won't do that. But maybe you do. Sometimes we will, but definitely come into the detachment, and we'll show all our equipment, we'll show our procedures, we'll show how things get done, we'll show what the burden is on an investigation. Responding to the call, that general duty emergency police car that shows up at the scene is just a small part of what we do, and in terms of getting the package to court. So it's important for you to know that and to understand how that moves forward. And finally, our people. And by that, I'm very specific with the people in the detachment. So that's not to exclude the people that are here and the people of our communities, because the first four are all about you. The last one is about our people, to make sure that we're developing them. The police officers that are stuck behind a mountain of paperwork are not police officers that are out patrolling hotspots. They're not out looking for traffic violators. They're not out walking down the street downtown in our various communities. So we have to look at how to develop them to make sure that they're the most effective they can be. That's partly training, that's partly mental health, in terms of their own mental health, so that they can go out and help people as well. So that's going to be a big part of what we do. Okay, the numbers. Starting with the total criminal code. What I want to, again, I didn't want to focus on the numbers, and I'm going to do a big caveat on these numbers, especially for the media that's here. These numbers haven't settled. So typically what happens is that numbers will come up and down, and things will be reported as they're investigated, as they go through our quality assurance. It's determined that that wasn't the right code for them, or the right universal crime reporting, or UCR code for it. So we have to address that. So these numbers are always, will take about a year, which is why Statistics Canada publishes 2016 data in 2017 and 2018 data in 2017 and 2018. So it takes a while for it to balance out. But what I do want you to see here is the trend. So this is a comparison between Penticton, North Okanagan Detachment, which is Vernon, North Okanagan, Kamloops Detachment, and Kelowna Detachment. I'd like to take a lot of credit for that, for all the members say, look how low Penticton is, but that's population-based. So Penticton is a smaller community, obviously, than Kelowna, so Kelowna will obviously have more events happening. But what you will see is that that trend is always relatively the same. So if crime's going up in Kelowna, it's probably going up here too, and probably in Vernon. So that whole corridor that we're looking at is kind of homogeneous. It's the same sort of things happen here as happen in our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south. So what that means to me is that we need to work together. So we have a lot of ways of communicating in our detachments, to our detachments, through my commander, which is Chief Superintendent Brad Howley. Many of you may remember him. He used to be standing in this place. And he holds us all accountable to make sure that we're addressing these issues. By the same token, we have our CompStat, comparative statistics meeting, that allows us to start to target where the issues are. And you can see there's a lot of cyclical things. Crime tends to go down in the summer or in the winter, and tends to peak in the summer. And that's typical of the increased population in all of our communities, and typical of more activity from the people that we're targeting. So total crime, criminal code in the regional area. So same thing. We see a lot. Obviously the numbers are lower because the population base is lower, but it's nothing out of the out of the ordinary. You'll see that South Okanagan is higher because that includes both Oliver and Osoyoos. So when we, from our statistical reporting, they're connected. So it's not that one or the other is higher than the other. They all seem to be relatively the same. And you will see in a few places where there's peaks and valleys. And again, that's very cyclical. And it's something that we look at in terms of trends. So when I talk about statistics, I'm not a statistician. I'm I can't even say the word. I'm an engineer by training. I used to blow up stuff in the Army. That was a lot of fun, but I don't do that anymore. So the statistics, we have a professional in the detachment who does that. And her analysis is what guides us into where we need to be focusing our efforts. And that's what we rely upon. Total criminal code crime rate. So this is probably a more relevant number. So just looking at the total numbers, it's not really going to tell me a lot. But crime rate, so this is the crime rate per 1,000 population. So for every 1,000 people that we have, this is how many crimes would occur. So total criminal code, for instance, in February of 2017, is about 4.2 crimes in North Okanagan, that being the Vernon. So in Penticton itself, and to make sure I get my number or my colors right, it's a little bit higher in that same time frame, so it's about 8 in that time frame. So that's the rate that we want to look at, and that's the rate that we want to see go down. And we don't make that go down just by constantly spinning the hamster wheel and doing the same thing. We make that go down through new techniques and through new initiatives that we're going to talk about tonight. Crime rate regional. So again, a lot more variance. And again, not a statistics guy, but that variance is because it's a much smaller sample base that we're dealing with in terms of population. So the variances can look a lot wilder, but we're still talking in that same range of 2 to 10 or 2 to 12 of crime rate. And you can see in mid-2015, there was quite a spike. And then you can see again in August of 2016, there's a spike in all of those areas, in our regional areas. And again, with the tourist population and with the type of people that we see coming into the area in the summertime, that explains that spike. And that's why we have to address those issues and start to look at ways to address those specific concerns. Property crime in Penticton. And I think a lot of people here tonight are going to talk about property crime. And we are certainly open to that. But again, when we talk about crime, we talk about focusing our efforts on who's committing the majority of the crime. And in the case of Penticton, in the case of the South Okanagan, in the case of Vancouver, it's the prolific offenders. 80% of crime is caused by about 3% of criminals. And if we can target those criminals, if we can take them off the board, then the crime rate starts to drop. By the same token, we have to talk about perceptions of crime. So when I look at that, in terms of theft from vehicle and break and enter, which is break and enter business and break and enter residence, if you look at those lines, the purple line at the bottom is residential and the green line just above it is business. And the red heartbeat of crime in this community is theft from auto, is theft. So by far and away, the biggest concern in Penticton in particular, and you'll see that is mirrored in the regional statistics, it's theft, and it's theft from auto. And we know who's doing that, and we target those people, and when they come off the board, you'll see, I can almost guarantee you where that big spike is for theft from vehicle in 2015, mid-2015, we took 1 or 2 people off the board, put them in jail, down it goes. And you'll see that again, it's starting to climb up again, particularly in theft from auto as we get into May, going into June. And I would hazard a guess that you'll see that start to drop pretty soon because we just took someone off the board last night. So it's going to keep going. And that's what happens. It's targeting those prolific offenders that's going to do that. That's not to say that we're not going to go after the people that are doing the day-to-day crime or that are just emerging into that criminal lifestyle, but it's something that we can start to address. So in property crime rate, that's a little bit more balanced. So that's for Penticton, that's the rate, again, for 1,000 people. And you can see that it's remained relatively stable. We had that big spike in 2015 compared to our partner communities in the Okanagan. But again, the takeaway is not the number. We're going to address the number. That's what we're going to be going after. The takeaway is that it's relatively flat and we need to bring it down. And that's what we're going to be working towards in the coming year. And again, the regional property crime rate, and we're just doing the rate here. So you can see that from that perception of crime, when I hear things like crime is out of control, well actually, it's going down. And that's what we want it to do. It's not going to go to zero. That would be naive to think that we're going to eliminate all crime. But we are going to knock it down. And that's my commitment to you tonight, and commitment on behalf of all of the detachments, that the things that we set as our priorities are what is going to bring that crime rate down. Again, the regional property crime rate going down. Violent crime. So again, we talk about perceptions of crime. You'll see in the statistics. And I'm going through this pretty quickly because I want to get to the questions and answers. The statistics, that rate per 1,000 is around 1. So 1 violent crime. And that's not an assault. That includes assaults. That includes domestic violence. That includes robberies. That includes, and by robbery I mean stealing something with violence. Often you'll see that reported that a robbery occurred. Well, it's not a robbery when someone breaks into your car and you're not there. That's a theft. So we report that differently to make sure that we're accurately reporting it and capturing it. Criminal harassment, harassing phone calls. Those are all violent crimes. And the rate in Penticton is about 1 per, or 0.8. So we have a homicide. We had 2 homicides in the last 3 months in Penticton. 1 was domestic violence, 1 was lifestyle. So if you're not involved in that lifestyle, the chances that you're going to be affected by it, and I don't mean in terms of familial or friendships, because you might know the person, so you are definitely affected, but in terms of that driving our perception that this is an unsafe community, that's false. And we have to be able to understand that, and we have to be able to get that message out. So again, violent crime, domestic violence, 61. So this is in a quarter, by the way, I should know that's an important part, is this is the last quarter. So up till June. So from January, February, March, and then April, May, June is what we're looking at. So domestic violence, 61, non-domestic, 148. So of all of the files that we've gone to, 5,030 in Penticton, 209 were classified as violent crime. So again, not a statistician, but I would say that 4% is pretty low. But it needs to be lower. And we can start to lower it by addressing some of the root causes of what's happening up there. In particular, the non-domestic assaults and that sort of thing, mischiefs and those sort of things that are happening in some of our more populated areas. So regional violent crime rate, again, quite a variance in terms of the time of year, but again, when we're talking in smaller population areas, when you have 1 assault last year and you have 2 assaults this year, it's 100% increase. So that's not particularly meaningful for us in terms of how we're going to target it. So we have to look at those statistics correctly. But again, it is the violent crime rate in our regional areas tends to be a bit higher than it is in the larger population bases. And that has a lot to do with our ability to target those people. And that's what we'll be doing in the coming year as well. And the violent crime rate, again, very similar to the actual numbers. It's quite erratic, but that just shows that what the effect of 1 or 2 incidents in a small community can be. So this is the one that I really want you to look at for the last quarter. So this is the second quarter file types just for Penticton, and we'll get into the regional area after. So that blue line on the left, at the top, it's 443 of all of our files. So again, about 5,000 files. That's all theft. So the highest thing, so what you see that emergency vehicle going to, that general duty member in the marked police car in full uniform is theft. And 9 times out of 10, that theft is over and long. The guy's long gone. Half of those thefts are theft from auto. The majority of those thefts, the door was unlocked to the car. So your police force is spending, relative to all the other types of crime, the majority of their time chasing after wallets and iPhones and computers and books that were left in unlocked cars. Is that preventable? Completely. So if we want to start focusing on the hot spots, if we want to start focusing on the people that are committing the majority of crime in our communities, we need to get those things down, and that's where all of you come in. And that's where the media comes in terms of getting the message out to all of our communities. And what our volunteers that are out there putting little notices on cars, don't leave your computer in here. And there's some other strategies that we'll talk about. The next one is abandoned 911s. So that's about 350. Every time there's an abandoned 911, someone misdials a number and accidentally hits 911, a police car is going to come to that. We have to, because we don't know what caused that. So again, 350 files, 350 times a police car, an emergency vehicle, sometimes two, went to a residence in this community for nothing. Somebody made a mistake, misdialed, somebody was playing with the phone, somebody pocket dialed their cell phone, all of those kind of things. That's quite a toll. So right now we're probably at about 1,000 of the 5,000 files that we went to. So 20% of the files are either preventable or sending a car in the wrong direction. And that's something that we can affect. Traffic is the next one, disturbance. Now we're starting to get into the issues downtown, that sort of thing where there's disturbances and the police car has to go to that. And then we start to go down. And if you look way down at the bottom, fourth from the bottom, you'll see domestic and assault. So those are the first two that we're starting to hit into violent crime. So a small percentage of what we are actually doing in terms of the general duty workload and our investigative workload starts to get into the violent crime. So again, that perception that this is a violent community starts to wane a bit when you look at that. It's not a violent community, it's a very safe community. We just need to make it safer for everybody, and that includes some of the people that we're going to talk about later in terms of who's causing some of these issues. That's another good one. Chargeable versus non-chargeable. So of all of the files that members go to, and this is going to be related through the whole year. This won't change much until we get some of these initiatives going. 64% of all calls that police in this community go to are non-chargeable, will not result in a charge. So again, we're talking people with body armor, firearms, emergency vehicles, lights, sirens, the whole deal. 64% of their work will not result in their primary duty, which is public safety, immediately in terms of charging. So again, do we want to throw a bunch of people in jail and make all these charges? No, I'm not saying that. But we need to start directing our police into the right locations and into the right duties so that we can ensure that they're targeting the people that are causing the most issues, but so that they're also helping the people that have issues. And we'll talk about that some more later on. And that's what they're doing day to day. So the two big ones on there, blank, the big gray pie, slice of the pie, and the other occurrences, slice of the pie. So other occurrences, so again, we're talking about the majority of that file pie. And other occurrences is false abandoned 911s, false alarms, missing persons. Again, can't overestimate how important it is for us to be involved in missing persons from the first instance. And it's a high priority file, so that is important. But if it's showing up on that particular one, it's because the person did turn up. Other suspicious occurrences, I'd like to see that number come up because I want people to call in suspicious occurrences so we can start to build our hotspots. And then in the blank, a lot of those things are, the majority of that is unsubstantiated. So a call that came in that was unsubstantiated. And again, I would ask why the police go into something like that when we can all be involved in that. So what does crime look like in our community? So we'll talk about this one. So full disclosure, this is my last attachment, but it's no different here, no different in Kelowna or Vancouver or Soyuz. So this young lady is a prolific offender. She's 19 years old and has roughly 30 to 40 convictions. Check one door, check two doors, walk away. Have we prevented the theft from auto by locking our doors? Absolutely. Have we got her the help that we can get her, or at least get her to the judge? Yes, because of that video camera. That $200 Costco video HD surveillance system allowed our prolific offender team in Mission, similar to our target enforcement unit here, to identify who she was. And she's 19 years old, addicted, strongly addicted since she was 13 or 14. So is she a criminal? a hardened criminal, or does she have an addictions issue? Is the solution to her not committing those crimes throwing her in jail, or is it getting her off the drugs? Because that's what happened. So she doesn't have another conviction because she was treated after this. So it's important to look at it from the totality of what we're doing. So it's not just about throwing people in jail, it's also about getting them help that they need. Oops, sorry. So, almost done. Moving forward, it's not just about more police. All of the, my government bosses will love to hear that, but there may be a time when we need more police, and there may be a time where we need specific types of police. So that's something that's part of my job, to represent that to local government and to the provincial government as well, in terms of what we need. But it's not just about throwing more cops at the issue, because that's not going to change it. So A-Watch, we work on a watch system. There's 4 watches in Penticton. In some of the smaller communities, it's a bit of a different scheduling. But for a larger community, 4 watches. 1 watch is on the Monday day shift, and they deal with Teddy Jagger, who's drinking and broke a bottle downtown. They arrest him, throw him in the drunk tank, and away he goes. Next morning, Ted gets out, and he decides he's going to kick in a window or steal, oh look, an iPhone in that unlocked car. I think I'll grab that. And then he gets arrested by the Target Enforcement Unit, goes through, gets released, and he drinks all of the money that he made, the $5, $10 that he sold that $700 iPhone for, and gets drunk and causes some other issue, gets arrested by